Happy Halloween! Today, I want to talk about a spooky subject indeed, and that is destroyers in World of Warships Legends. An absolutely terrifying topic because destroyers are so often played so poorly in this game. But I think what I've got for you today in the Tier 7 German Premium ZF6 is an example of almost flawless positioning on my part. And we'll dig into that as the battle goes on. But a little bit of background about how it came to be, because I am in a division, which is something that you don't see too often. My division mates are Aaron, who is a fellow CC. He's got a channel called Where Are You Ron on YouTube. I'm sure you've heard of him. And the other one is a guy who goes by the name of Bismarck. The reason I'm in a division with these two is because at the time this game was played, Aaron was streaming, and he was having a bit of a rough go of it. You know how it can be when you're streaming and, well, the teams aren't necessarily playing too great. So he had members of the audience get into a division with him, and I just happened to join in for a game. And this is the result. It's a pretty good game, too. In any case, we'll start getting into the positioning right now. The reason that we're over here by the Charlie cap is because we spawned in the center. Our other destroyer's going to Alpha, but we don't want to go into Bravo. That cap is surrounded by islands, and so if we enter it, we really won't have any vision of what might be over there. Much better to go over to this Charlie cap and then get some eyes on the ships down this way. And apologies if you hear the game audio cutting in and out. The recording actually, for some reason, picked up the voices of the people talking in the team chat, and I just had to mute them. I didn't want to mute all of the game audio, though, so it's going to be a little patchy. In any case, the Charlie cap is occupied by this Akatsuki, so we don't want to necessarily push straight in. Our concealment, as you can see, is not the best. I've got this thing built as a gunboat, so I've got 5.9 kilometer concealment, which I'm sure some experts will tell you is a terrible way to build this destroyer, but I disagree, and I don't have any issues whatsoever, even though this Akatsuki can absolutely outspot me, and I'm sure the other destroyer, which is a USS Black, can as well. In any case, the Akatsuki has already flipped the Charlie cap, which you might be thinking is a problem, but really it's not. We're going to reverse ourselves just barely into the Charlie cap and try to take it as we shoot some torpedoes at this Hawk, which we're predicting is going to turn in, but unfortunately that's not really going to happen, and the torpedoes are going to miss this particular battleship. But the Akatsuki has left the cap, potentially because this Heinrich has pushed in, and I don't necessarily think that's the best idea for him, but whatever. We've got two ships in this cap. We should be able to secure it. And maybe the torpedoes will actually get a hit on the Hawk. I can't actually remember here, but we're a few seconds away from securing the cap. I kind of wish the battleship was not inside of it, because if he wasn't, well, the cap wouldn't have been constantly reset. In any case, the Hawk crosses the border of the cap along with the other enemy cruiser, and we're going to hightail it out of here for the moment. We don't want to get spotted by this Hawk, and I don't really want to deploy a smoke screen in order to shoot at him, because he should be going down here fairly quickly. And the good thing about this is we do have, of course, support in the form of this battleship and these two cruisers. As soon as the Hawk goes down, I decide, okay, we can smoke up now. Going to take some shots at the Harbin over here along with the battleship and the two cruisers, and he shouldn't be long for this world. Once he's gone, the Akatsuki will no longer have support, and we can easily push into this cap and take it. And there he goes. Akatsuki is spotted as well. We're going to shoot at him, and of course we're going to shoot the armor piercing. A mistake that a lot of people make in German destroyers is thinking that the HE is good. No, the HE is trash universally across the board on all German destroyers. It's true that the HE has better penetration than your typical destroyer, and that may allow you to penetrate the armor of cruisers or maybe even battleships in some cases, but the trade-off for that good pen on the German HE is that the HE lacks any punching power. horror. And this is true universally across all German destroyers, but it's especially true of the ZF-6. The HE is absolute trash when it comes to dealing damage to destroyers, but the AP is small enough caliber and has improved penetration angles that you can often get full pens on destroyers with the AP, which does way more damage than the HE. So always shoot AP in this thing unless you have to switch to HE because your AP is bouncing, essentially. Or maybe if you want to start a fire after getting a torpedo hit, then would be an acceptable time to switch to the AP as well. In any case, the Akatsuki has been driven out of this cap, and we're going to flip it. About 6 minutes have passed in the game, too, and we're only now just flipping the first objective. That's one thing I wanted to point out because a lot of times, destroyer players will die within the first 5 minutes inside of a capture circle. That is completely useless. There is no reason for you to die within the first 5 minutes trying to take a cap. If you cannot take the cap, you run away from it, and then you go back in when the opportunity presents itself. So we secure the cap, Akatsuki is driven away. At this point, our choices are to either go chase the Akatsuki or to go to the Bravo cap. We elect to go to Bravo. We're never going to catch the Akatsuki. I mean, we might, but it's going to take an inordinate amount of time to find him, and then we're going to have to try to sink him. And it's going to be much more valuable to enter the Bravo cap and flip that, because while sinking the Akatsuki would net our team some points, securing the Bravo cap is going to ensure a steady stream of points, and it's going to give us the 2 cap advantage since the enemy holds Alpha, but nobody has held Bravo up until this point. Plus, looking at the map, we should be perfectly safe to do this. The rest of the enemy team, aside from the Akatsuki, is somewhere to the southeast of the Alpha Cap. Well, the Charlemagne is inside of it, but there's a battleship and a cruiser and another battleship to the south of the cap. The destroyer is also likely around there too. I assume he's responsible for that smoke screen that we see in front of us. And the Akatsuki is probably headed back toward his teammates, pursued by one of the cruisers that is still alive on the flank where we spawned. 26 seconds away from taking the Bravo cap, and once we do, we'll have secured an advantage, at which point we can go to the Alpha cap and maybe try to get some spotting of these enemy ships, because of course our other destroyer has been sunk without achieving too much, which leaves us alone versus the 2 enemy destroyers. But, of course, our goal is primarily, in a destroyer, to play the objectives, so there we net our second capture ribbon, and also to spot. The question when you're playing a destroyer is, where can I place my destroyer on the map in order to take or protect an objective, and also in order to provide vision for my teammates to shoot at the larger capital ships like battleships and cruisers. Just like, as I say, in a battleship where positioning is key, the same is true of a destroyer, which is why you saw us reverse into the Charlie cap in the beginning so that we could escape and then come back when the situation had cleared up a little bit. And that's also why we're being so cautious while taking this cap. Note we go behind this island to the right of the screen. We don't go in front of it because there is a slight chance that we get spotted while in front of the island. And if that's the case, there's a Suzuya and I think a Colorado that can shoot at us. And if our backs are toward the island, then we have no method of escape. So we enter the capture circle. We're unfortunately spotted by one of the planes launched by the enemy team there. We take down the plane, which eliminates their vision of us, and we're now able to take the cap. We spot the Akatsuki out there somewhere, or maybe that was the Black. I'm not sure which destroyer that is, but you can see him spotted there next to his teammates. And the Akatsuki, I think, has doubled back and entered the Charlie cap, which is fine. That's about the only thing he can do at this point. And, well, if he takes the cap, it doesn't really matter because it doesn't seem like we have any resistance in the Alpha cap here, and we should be able to secure it easily. Of course, things aren't going too well for our team. The enemy still has 5 ships left floating to our 4, although it looks like they're about to lose the Colorado, and the Bismarck is pushing into the cap. we are going to, I think, lay a smoke screen, or we've done that already. Aaron is behind us in his cruiser, the Bayard, so I think he's benefiting from that smoke screen. I'm not entirely sure, but hopefully he is not spotted by the Bismarck and he's raining HE down on the Bismarck. Meanwhile, I don't know what the Bismarck is doing, but he just saw this capture circle turn red from his perspective, so he should know that there's a destroyer in here. Apparently he doesn't, though, because he eats every last one of our torpedoes and goes down for a dev strike. Well, maybe that's an exaggeration. He takes 3, but that's enough to sink him. And that eliminates all the enemy team's battleships now. The Colorado is down, Bismarck is down, only the Suzuya and both enemy destroyers are left. Up until this point, I've managed to secure all 3 of these capture circles, and I've done only 52,000 damage. You might look at that and say that that is a mediocre number. And sure, it is in terms of raw damage done. But in terms of battle impact, this is an incredibly impactful game. We've secured all 3 objectives, and we've managed to hold 2 out of 3 of the objectives for a long time now, which, along with the kills on the enemy, has put us ahead on points. So the enemy team doesn't really have a good chance of winning this. Theoretically, they could take out the cruisers, but they'll also have to take me out if they want to win. And one of our cruisers has gone back to retake Charlie, so the Akatsuki's efforts really are futile at this point. We see the smokescreen in front of us for the USS Black, who, up until this point, I don't really know what he's been doing. I don't think he's entered any caps. Well, maybe he was responsible for turning the alpha cap red, but since then he hasn't played the objectives. And that is ultimately your primary goal in a destroyer. That is how you win games, by securing objectives. But you have to be smart about it. You cannot die inside an objective at any point in the game, really, if you can help it. Your goal should be to survive for the full 15 minutes if you're playing a destroyer, so that you can exert influence throughout the entire course of the game. We could have pushed very aggressively into the Charlie cap in the beginning and sunk, but if we had, I suspect we probably would have lost this game, because I doubt anybody would have flipped alpha, and frankly, both teams were trading pretty evenly up until this point in terms of kills. In any case, we run into the USS Black, who is unprepared to fight us. The Black is a very good gunboat, too, by the way, and it's got radar, so you would think he's got the advantage in this duel here. We launch torpedoes at him, which maybe not the best move, but you can see just how effective the AP is against enemy destroyers, which is why I say it's always a mistake to shoot HE at enemy destroyers, in German destroyers specifically. The Black should absolutely be shooting HE at me like he is, and you can see he's removing an awful lot of my hit points. We do have a little bit of assistance from Aaron, although he's kind of far away and his shots aren't accurate, so this is really a 1v1 at this point. Black is running away. He's lost this duel. He's lost more HP than we have, thanks to the full pens of our AP, which hit him for a couple 4K salvos or something like that. So you can see just how nasty this AP is when it gets full pens on destroyers. Overpens not so much, but the overpens do comparable damage to the HE, honestly, so it really doesn't matter. Black is nearly toast. We have definitely won this duel, and we take him out for our second kill of the game. That leaves really only the Akatsuki left, who doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell of winning. So I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that even though we end this battle with a fairly mediocre 68,000 damage, this was an example of pretty excellent decision-making on my part. In that, I primarily focused on the objectives. I managed to take all 3 of them, and the damage I did was useful damage. Now, a lot of people think destroyers are all about dealing damage to battleships with their torpedoes, which admittedly can be fun, but that's not their role. Destroyers do have the ability to dish out an awful lot of damage, but what's really important is the precision of that damage, or who you deal it to. This game does not reward you based on the total amount of damage done you have at the end of the game. We only have 68,000 damage done, yet we're going to get nearly 3,000 base XP. And primarily that is because we took so many capture circles, and also because we removed 100% of the HP from one of the enemy destroyers, and probably about 75% of the HP from one of the enemy battleships. And that ultimately is what's important, the percentage of the enemy ship's HP you remove. That is how you are rewarded by this game. And so, therefore, the most valuable damage you can possibly do, and the most efficient damage, is damage against destroyers. So, while playing a destroyer, your primary goal is to find a place on the map where you can spot, to play the objectives, and to counter the enemy destroyers and, if possible, sink them or do as much damage as possible. Those are the three things you want to keep in mind while playing destroyers, and if you can, with enough practice, then you can be a very decisive factor in the outcome of games like we were in this one. Hope you enjoyed this battle. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.